Hey Rob, how you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm good. I appreciate you taking the time to be on the podcast.
Hey, my problem. Sorry, it's a little bit late there. We're just finishing a Zoom session with the boys. So, as is the new normal, everything is Zoom.
Everything is Zoom.
Exactly.
That's good. So I'll quickly do an introductory. So on the left hand of the screen, we have Jesse Falanga, who's our OPSM GM. And then at the bottom of the screen, we have Rob Gale, who is the head coach of Valour FC in the CPL. So Rob, I'll start off by saying thank you for having the opportunity for us to come on the podcast with us. The first question I want to ask you is, how are you doing right now professionally during this quarantine?
Yeah, I mean, probably like everybody else, itching to get back. What someone asked me the other day, kind of what have you learned about yourself during this time, right? Is a kind of a good question to look at yourself. And I think I feel lucky and blessed that I'm in a career that I love. I'm lucky that with my two girls here at home, I'm a single dad, but I enjoy spending time with them. Homeschooling, it's not a drag. They're at good ages where they're independent and they work well at 12 and 15, but I enjoy time with them. And if you take sort of a look back over the last 15 years or so I've been in Canada, you don't get this amount of time at home.
No.
Right? Any of us to sort of take stock, read webinars, and I feel lucky. I feel energized and ready to go when we do go back. But I'm doing well. I can't complain. There's so many people who've either lost loved ones or family members or been affected terribly by this, and you just count your blessings every day for what you do have. And I live my life that way most times. So for me, it's carpe diem and just seize the day every day, get up and enjoy life and be grateful for what you have, buddy.
Amen.
Rob, I gotta ask, have you picked up any new hobbies, any new skills? A lot of people.
I had to do an insurance claim on the kitchen. I've ended up redecorating my entire kitchen. I don't know if you can see it. I've got nice lights.
Oh wow!
Wow, interior decorator.
New countertop. So I'm bringing out a HD TV show, buddy.
There you go.
Coach construction.
I'm going with Coach Gale, huh? Thank you.
Exactly.
We usually like to give our viewers a little bit of a background on the coach, but we gotta ask. Well, me and Godwin are Africans, and you were born on the continent, so you are a fellow African as well. Tell us a bit about that and how that come about.
Yeah, proud African. It's funny. My dad is a teacher and a soccer coach, and actually was in New Zealand when I'm the youngest of five, and the next youngest to me, she's 3 years older, but she was born in New Zealand when he was out there teaching and coaching. They returned to England with the 4 kids, and my dad happened to see a job advertised in Zambia for soccer coach, and part of the role and responsibility was also teaching. So we end up going over to they ended up going over to Zambia, and I was born in a little town of Mongu, Luanaka Hospital. So he ended up moving from there, funnily enough, to Tanzania in Moshi. So I spent on and off. My mum and I would come back and forth from England, and then we lived at the international schools there, an international school in Moshi, and spent the early part of my childhood between England and Africa. I mean, what a beautiful continent and beautiful people for anyone who haven't been there. To live life and make the most of what you have, as you guys know better than anybody, and still live with a smile on your face and faith. It sort of helped me, I think, over the years, just to be in different cultures, respect different people, work with different people. And although obviously my Swahili is not as good as it used to be, I can still remember some things about the motherland, and then grew up in England before I ended up coming over to North America in my 20s.
Rob, you don't know, I was also, I lived in Tanzania in Dar es Salaam for 5 years before moving here.
Wow.
Jambo.
Jambo, Abari.
I was just saying.
I climbed Kilimanjaro when I was 5 years old. Did you know that?
Man.
Yeah.
You must have lungs.
Oh, Not anymore.
So, Rob, you come from a football family. Then I know everybody in your, I guess a lot of people in your family have licenses. What's dinner like? Do you guys only talk football?
My dad only talks football. He can't switch off from it. He's unbelievable. He comes over to visit me and the kids, and he spends all the time speaking and talking football. He's just that kind of guy, you know. And he's so interested in how things are and developing the Canadian game and everything. But the rest of us, I think, have a good, healthy balance. But my mum played, as you say, she was a solid footballer. If she plays five-a-side out in the garden, she's still competitive now. She just turned 81 in May.
Wow.
Oh,
my eldest sister was a very solid player, played with what became the Arsenal ladies. They were called Friends of Fulham at the time, actually played in an FA Cup final on the women's game.
Wow.
And was one of the early pioneers of the women's game in England. My youngest sister, the one who was born in New Zealand, was a very talented player. Could have played international, but never really liked the scene and the setup behind it there. And my brother was an unbelievable technical footballer too. And funnily enough, most of them went into either coaching at some stage and or teaching. And three of them are still educators. Two of them went all the way to their UEFA A licenses. My sister married into, when she was working for the Football Association in England, married a colleague, John Peacock, absolutely world-renowned coach, educator. And obviously, I think I was about 12 when they got together. So he's been a huge influence on my career. And he's won 2 European championships with England, a World Cup at the under-20 level. Coaches at Manchester United right now, as well as helping me every day with Valour. So, yeah, football family, but most of us try and switch off when we can. Not that you can most of the time, except my dad. If he was on here, it'd be a 10-hour podcast. He'd just talk football all day.
Do you guys all support the same club?
No. We're most of us are Arsenal fans. My dad was always South Londoner and always a Fulham fan.
Oh, wow.
So he kind of guided me in that early part of my career when I ended up signing as a youth at Fulham. And it was a proud moment for him. I wanted to sign for Arsenal, but I wasn't good enough.
So talk to me about that transition when you were going back and forth from Africa to England. That transition when you first started playing football, how was that? How did that go?
You know, what's interesting is I didn't actually play organised soccer till I was 11. Like in a team. U11s was the first time that we played. Like I played for schools and clubs, as it is in England, which you know, the lead into Boy Scouts kind of thing. And I just remember with my dad coaching and my brother and sister coaching, I used to go on a lot of those summer camps and fun, and that used to be my summer, about 6 weeks, 30 hours a week. Out on these camps that my family were coaching in, and you just always had a ball. And then school playgrounds. In England, it's front page, back page news, as you know. There's no other real sports that anybody gravitates to like that.
Yeah.
You know, with rugby and cricket probably being the next big ones. But I played every sport at school. Was captain of just about every sports team I ever was a part of at school, and growing up in the different teams. And we would play in the playground, before school, during school, after school. We'd run home. I had a massive green outside my house, lovely green space. We'd play pickup games till dinner. Your mum would call you in for dinner. You'd wolf down your food before the lights out. And I mean, it shapes you. And I think coming into Canada and North America and seeing the growth, and I know there's lots of coaches who talk about this, but we almost over-structured the game, right? And kids now, if they haven't got a beautiful turf field and a full-size goal, are kind of looking around and going, little kid in Africa thinks I probably juggled oranges. I remember having fruit trees in my garden, and, you know, we'd roll up a bag of paper if we needed to, anything that was round, or if it's a rock, you kick it. And you realize that element of play and just enjoyment of the game, and the school of hard knocks playing street soccer is what kind of makes you.
So talk to me about that whole trend when you were traveling from Africa to England to Canada. Talk to me a little bit about the mindset and the mentality that some of these kids had in Europe and also in Africa.
I mean, I was only like 4.5, 5 when we finally come to England. So most of what I know is through, asking questions now and stories and having international students and that around me. But what I do know, and obviously we've got 2 Ghanaians in the team. One boy we just brought over, an amazing story, in Solomon Antwi and Raf Oheen, and they've come, from those environments. It's competitive in Africa. People don't realize it, and to get noticed and to have someone put their faith in you, the faith that these boys have, their outlook on life, they're so grateful for everything, and they're so humble and just willing to work hard and do whatever they can to repay that faith in you. I mean, it's so refreshing compared to the millennials that just expect or want things or think they've arrived. These guys will always have that work ethic and that humility about them. And then in England, it's a working class game, That's, I think, the great part about it. And I just saw an interview today. Robbie Savage was grilling one of the ministers and saying, when are we going to get the people's game back? When are we going to allow the kids to go back and just play on the streets and enjoy football, because it's such a big part of our culture. And what I love about England and miss is that you go to the pub and everybody's watching the game and talks the game, and the friends and the banter in the dressing room. I mean, everybody knows, right? The males, the females, the female game's exploding over there. And there's opportunity for all now, which probably wasn't the case when my sisters were growing up and had to work a bit harder for it. But to have those different experiences and cultures, it shapes you in so many different ways. And
Coach, I gotta ask, you've been here for a long time on the technical side. What improvement have you seen? Also, what does progress or success mean for football in this country?
I think we're craving, to answer that last part, we're craving acknowledgement on a world stage. And, you can look at an Iceland or a Belgium or any team, a Croatia at the last World Cup, what it means to the people and to the people within the game when you finally make that breakthrough. It's such a watershed moment, and I think that's what we're crying out for in Canada on the male side. We've had it on the female side, that bronze medal repeat. It gives you I don't want to say recognition per se, or you're not looking for a pat on the back, but validation of the work that's been done and the people that are here before. We had so many great pioneers in the game, from Tony Waiters back in '86 when we got that breakthrough moment. And talking to those guys who were within the game, we probably didn't or weren't ready to capitalize on it enough with the league and everything else. So I think that's what we're all hoping for and craving is to get ourselves and be able to compete on that stage on a regular basis. And I genuinely believe with the Alphonso Davies, the Jonathan Davids, these people in those fantastic environments now, they're starting to pay more attention to us. But for all the people who work before us and all the people who work after us, just having that recognition of their work and seeing the fruits of your labor, I think the old Chinese proverb is the guy who plants his seeds in the garden, it's not for him, but the generations after, right? And they're going to enjoy the fruit. So as a youth coach, I very much believe in that. But it's been amazing. The first summer I came out here was 2000, and you'd maybe pass through a small town and there might be one soccer field if you're lucky. There was very few people playing on it for sure. And I look at Manitoba, and when we came in 2006, we're a province that can only play outside for 5 months of the year, but there was no real indoor facilities, no infrastructure. The way the game has grown and the club standards and the license-based leagues and the coach education and the facility development, I mean, unrecognizable. Winnipeg's unrecognizable in a soccer sense from when it was when I first came here, which is fabulous.
Well, we want to speak a bit just about Winnipeg. I know it's a very hockey city. Where does football stand in the city, and how's Valour, keeping itself afloat and everything?
Yeah, I mean, I think we had some great successes as a first year. If I take the general manager side of my job, and building a football club, we have enormous success in the first year, and huge things to be proud of. I think the highest or closest to the highest number of fans on a regular basis, and total crowds, memberships, everything. We got a huge connection to our community and the fan base. It's like a reunion when you go to a Valour game. There's 5,000, 6,000 people. I could probably name 99% of them. And that's what I love about Winnipeg. It's a big city, and sort of 800,000 people almost. It feels like it could be a village. It could be Mongo. You know everyone, and you walk through the bush and chat to everybody. You know what I mean? And the people, there's no question, it's one of the best places in the world to live, because there's a community feel to it. You're not exposed to any great forces of nature that, rip through the Midwest or the hurricanes and everything else. It's relatively cheap to live here. But above all, the people, there's a reason it says friendly Manitoba on the license plate. It's so nice. And it's just a sort of, anyone who's lived in the Midwest of USA, it's just a laid back, relaxed style of living. And soccer, has grown a lot. There is an underbelly from way back in 1992 when the old Winnipeg Fury won the Mitre Cup and the last ever incarnation of the old CSL. But there's always been that immigrant population, lots of Europeans, Filipino culture, African, a lot of Asian immigrants now, Middle East. So we're a great snapshot of Canada. And I think what makes us great, and I always say this, is that our differences define us rather than divide us. We are a melting pot. We're a great city, multicultural, and we're getting a lot more people who've come from soccer as their number 1 or 2 sport coming in.
Yeah.
And they're loving the fact that professional soccer is now on their doorstep.
Rob, to kind of backtrack, I wanted to talk about your experience at the Canadian national team at the youth level. I mean, that should have been a great experience there. So talk to me a little bit more about that.
You know what? Unbelievable. And what an opportunity and apprenticeship really in the game. I think I was 26, 27 when I took over as technical director of Manitoba, and was probably the youngest one in the country in that time. Wow. And probably by fortune of being in a smaller province, getting that opportunity, although I had good qualifications and experience, I was still very young for the job. But working in the national training centres, I got to learn from Stephen Hart, Tony Fonseca, Dale Mitchell, Sean Fleming. Dick Bate was around for a small time, who was a great coach educator. But those experiences as technical director and learning from other TDs like John Walker, Michael Finley, Mark Parker, who was over in BC, all those guys, it gave me great understanding of, number one, the role, and they sort of took me under my wing, which was great for them. But then it led to me showcasing my coaching, that the CSA and Sean asked me to come on board with the under-17s. And the very first qualifying campaign, he had Patrick Tobo, who you guys all know is an unbelievable gentleman of the game, vastly experienced, played in the World Cup, but the most humble guy you'll ever meet. And him and Mike Finley were the assistant coaches, and Sean invited me along on the technical side. And I started just by doing the video, scouting and video analysis. It was old school budgets at the CSA. We had to bring up the camera. Sean, I mean, he's Scottish, so he could squeeze a penny out of, anything. He's unbelievable. He drops money, he's so tight, it lands on the back of his head because he's that quick down to pick it up. But he used to get me to bring my own personal DVD camera and mini CDs, and you'd be video it, and the battery would go at half time, and you'd run and try and find an outlet in the middle of it to go to videos games. I mean, the stories are hilarious.
Yeah.
But what it did, it gave me such a great apprenticeship learning, seeing these guys work, Patrick, Michael, Sean, They were very welcoming, Kevin Muldoon, and they always gave me a voice and the ability to learn CONCACAF. And you don't know what you don't know, right? We know that as coaches and as people. Until you go into that environment, I'm a cocky English guy who's come from Europe. It's the be-all and end-all of soccer. You know what the Europeans are like. We're all the same. We invented the game, so we know more than anybody else.
Yes.
And you go to CONCACAF and you go to Mexico and Panama and El Salvador and Guatemala, and you drive through slums and you see the desire, the hunger of these kids to make a better life through themselves through soccer, and just the things you can learn. So I did that for that full cycle. Michael Finley moved up to the under-20s with Valeria Gazzola, and Sean, you know, obviously liked my work and how we interacted as a group. I think we balance each other as personalities. If you know Sean, you'll know what I mean by that. And I got to go through 2 cycles with him at the under-17s, and brilliantly and fortunately, we went to 2 World Cups in a row, the 2011 in Mexico and 2013 in the Emirates. And if you ever think you've arrived in soccer or you've achieved something, go into a World Cup. Yeah. You realize just what a tiny little cog you are. Yeah. Fantastically humbling. I mean, we went 4 games unbeaten, got great results against England, Rwanda, Austria, and I've forgotten the last one. But we went 4 games unbeaten, which was unheard of between those 2 World Cups. And just amazing. Just looking back and that experience and the crowds and the media attention and everything else, and just to be there and to try and assist and help Canada get onto that stage. And if you look at the players that came through there, players like Samuel Pierre, Maxime Crepeau, you know, that was that era. Luca Gasparotto in the CPL, Michael Petrasso was there, those kind of guys. And then that led to me getting offered. Tony Fonseca saw me work in Mexico with the 17s and offered me the under 18 and 16 job.
So you were in Mexico coaching as well?
That was at the World Cup. So he was down there as technical director at that stage. So he saw me work and he asked me if I'd be interested in taking a team and kind of building the new game model and DNA for Canadian soccer. We have a very similar philosophy in how we saw the game, and also a firm belief that we have talent and we could go toe-to-toe with anybody on the world stage on our day. And that sort of drove us to work on national curriculum and game models and the Canadian DNA. And a lot of that has sort of continued. And then obviously John Herdman is a master of that and communicating that and bringing it to the next level ever since. But with the under-20s, again, it was such a great privilege. I gave debuts to people like Balou Tabla, Alfonso Davies, to work with Jonathan David and all these guys from the 18s to 20s. I mean, a conveyor belt of talent, Liam Miller, James Pantemis. I mean, name the guys I got to work with and have hopefully just a small role in offering them different experiences and shaping their career.
Coaching at the national level, what are the things that you think that you felt like you learned during that time?
Well, with the perennial underdogs, we had an unbelievably tight budget compared to the Mexico and the USAs or whatever else. But I think what you can build when you work with your country is you can build an us against them culture very, very quickly, right? You have something common to bond into, and that's what we're trying to build over time in Valour as a football club. I'm attached to Winnipeg and Manitoba, but probably last year 6 players, maybe this year 3 or 4 who have any connection. But when it's the Maple Leaf and it's Canada and like you guys and others who've come from immigrants or immigrant families, what the country has given to you, you want to give back, and you can buy into that. There's a real honor in that. That's why when I knew I was going to become a national team coach, I went through my citizenship to make sure if I'm going to be up there representing Canada and singing that national anthem, I'm a Canadian. Through and through. And anyone in my family will tell you I'm way more Canadian than I am English now. So I'm a Zambian Canadian instead of a Zambian English Canadian. But I think that it taught me a lot about team building, buying into cultures, bravery in methodology to give youth a chance. When we played England, I put in Valour and Alfonso in the middle of the park against an under-21 England side, and they were 15 and 16 at the time.
Wow.
And you have to, if you believe in something and you believe in young players, then really commit to that. And don't be afraid of, the armchair warriors and the keyboard warriors and any social media backlash, and stick to your philosophy and your principles. But above all of that, the biggest learning I would say is the tactical.
Yeah.
Because at the international level, you're working with the absolute creme de la creme in world football. I mean, some of the Argentinian players, the Spanish players we played against who are household names.
Yeah.
Uruguay, England, Raheem Sterling was in that team that played against us. Jordan Pickford was the goalie. And just the finite detail in your preparation, your scouting, the variation in the game. Argentina played us once and played 2-2-2-4. Wow. I'm used to seeing 4-4-2, and then I liked a bit of 4-3-3, and now I'm going, how on earth do you deal with this?
Yeah.
We played Rwanda, and African football can be so unstructured.
Yeah.
Individuals all over the field. It was 11 players acting individually, but somehow coming together and trying to work it out tactically and play against that, and how to deal with their strengths and exploit their weaknesses. A complete tactical education over that 7-8 years that I worked, and I feel absolutely blessed, number one, to have represented Canada. It's the greatest honour in your life, no doubt about that. And two, just everything you can learn from it, amazing.
Wow, Rob, it's amazing. In terms of just the CPL, after the inaugural year, what did you enjoy most about the league? What surprised you, if anything?
I was a big proponent that people would be surprised by the talent. So most people, I think, thought the level, and even people I see overseas and work in English clubs, and some of my old colleagues and friends there were surprised by the level of talent. And they were like, this was better than they thought it was going to be. That didn't surprise me. What I loved is there's a great camaraderie. We are all in it together. It's not just a punt line for Canadians by Canadians. Yeah. Just seeing players that I'd worked with, and it didn't have to be in my team. It was Chris Nanko, Kwame Awuah, Tristan Borges. I could keep going down the Vancouver teams and the Baldissimo brothers, and players that I've worked with, Bustos, Carrero, Petrasso, Louis Ballon, people I've worked with at the national team, to give them that leadership, that ability to play in front of their family, their friends. And for me, as a Canadian coach, my daughters had never seen a game in Canada because we never had any home games for Canada. They'd come to watch us play England in England because we went back with the family. But for them to be able to come to every game and live it with me was a beautiful thing. And I think many players across the league felt that. And it was so nice to see probably 40, 50, maybe more players that I've worked with now playing their trade and playing and competing in Canada. Some of them killed me and cost me results, but I still shook their hands and said congratulations and gave them a hug before and after. So,
Coach, it goes to show you taught them well.
Yeah, maybe they're probably there despite me, but that's okay. They're in the right place at the right time now, which is wonderful for the game here in Canada.
We have, I guess, one more question, I think, before we go into the Q&A. What does Rob Gale look for when he finds a player? What is the thing that strikes you the most?
Great question. I love players with personality, and you guys know me and how I come across and how I like to live and work my day. I think it's important. And what I mean by that is they don't have to be the liveliest or the loudest, but express your personality. Show us who you are when you're on the field. I always say that to a trialist. I want to know by watching you at the end of this trial who you are as a player. Mm-hmm. So if you're a tough tackling, ball winning, I'd kick my granny to steal the ball. Go for it. Show me that. Be that player on the field. You know what I mean? Or if you're a passer or you're a dribbler, express yourself. What a time to do it. What a time to be alive in Canada and a young Canadian footballer. So show that personality every time you go on the field. I always love that. And then another big one for us, my lovely daughter's made me a cup of tea. That's her way of telling me I'm talking too much. And
we love it. Keep bringing it.
Great footy talk.
Exactly. But I've lost my train of thought now. How you throw me off?
What a time to be alive.
Oh, yeah. And intelligence.
Yeah.
And I mean by that is that's important because we're trying to build footballers, and in the bigger picture, we're all working in the CPL to provide a platform to improve national youth teams, national players. So we're in it to win, every single one of us. Mm-hmm. And it's an entertainment business, so you want to entertain, or I view it as that. Mm-hmm. But for me, there's a way to do that and a way to do that properly, and that's to develop and invest in players. And I think any player I've worked with would hopefully feel that we show an investment in them as people, and first and foremost, and players. So if they've got a level of intelligence and a inquisitive mind about themselves that they can understand how to play a 3-4-3 and morph into a 4-3-3 or a 3-5-2, and they've got the versatility to interchange and play in different positions and just educate them further in the game. I think that's so important. And if they're like that on the field, they usually have, and Canadians are best at this, no doubt about it, North American athletes, they're intelligent off the field. They're scholars, they're good families, good people, read, we almost wish they were different characters when they went on the field sometimes because they're such great kids. I love that in a player. So I would say we look for a certain social, emotional, and hopefully football intelligence and a personality that then technique can be taught, tactics can be taught. The emphasis on technique has to be with the players, and by the time they reach us at this stage, it needs to be there in their foundation. And then obviously the physical side and the well-being, it makes that holistic, well-rounded player.
Well,
that's awesome. That's awesome. So we're going to get into the Q&A.
I thought that was the Q&A, wasn't
it? This is the Rob Gale Build Your Team Q&A.
Okay, here we go. Q&A. Is it spelled EH in true Canadian fashion?
It's from now on.
Awesome.
Thanks, Rob.
All right, so I'm going to give you two players, then you have to just choose one. Who would you pick? So Tony Adams or Sol Campbell?
Tony Adams.
Tony Adams, okay.
Coach, I got to ask why.
Just because he was the absolute bastion leader at Arsenal from 17 onwards. Mr. Arsenal is what we call him, and I'm an Arsenal fan. And Sol went off the rails a bit right at the end. I've met Sol. He was a lovely man. He is a lovely man. He's trying to make his way in the coaching game now, but yeah, you can't go against Mr. Arsenal.
Fair enough. Next one, Steven Gerrard, Lampard, or Paul Scholes?
Oof. What a triumvirate that is. Paul Scholes. He's an English ginger. You've got to look after each other. I tell you why, for me, Lampard probably the best goal-scoring midfielder of all time. Gerrard, I think the engine room and the passer. But Paul Scholes, if any of you listen, and I've got friends at Manchester United with my brother-in-law there now, and people I know in there, he controlled the tempo of the game. He could have made the Spanish team. He knew how to control a game, when to quicken it up, when to slow it down. Scholesy,
okay. Bergkamp or Zidane?
Oh, man. Wow. There's not room for two of them in there. Look, I've got to say, Dennis, I'm an Arsenal fan.
Dennis, my days.
He never flew and he didn't headbutt anyone. So, look, I'm biased there. What a choice. I mean, Zidane, what a player. That guy, he told the ball what to do and it said yes.
Yeah. Okay. Striking. So Thierry Henry or Alan Shearer?
Oh, Thierry. Okay. He's in the Canadian game. He's giving back to Canadian soccer now.
There you go.
But isn't Alan Shearer the greatest goal scorer in Premier League history?
Only by default, by playing more time than Thierry. If Thierry hadn't left for Barcelona, he came back to score again for Arsenal. But I'll tell you what, Patrick Vieira and Thierry Henry, for me, changed Arsenal, which was unbelievable, along with Arsene Wenger. You've got to give him the credit. And they changed the English game. They absolutely transformed the English game. Athletic, strong, technical, skillful, World Cup winners. I mean, amazing. The Invincibles.
Perfect. I guess this might be a biased question, but we'll see. Pep Guardiola or Arsene Wenger?
I got, this is going to kill me. What for? Arsene Wenger for the development of youth players and building a club. Pep Guardiola to win you a championship and for his absolute style of play. I think Wenger, when he was at Arsenal, we were called Barcelona light, really, because we couldn't quite topple the talent they had in Spain at the time. We came very close a few times, and Cesc coming over helped us. But if I want to win a championship, and right now, Pep.
Sounds good. So that was Pep Guardiola, you said?
Roundabout.
Awesome. I appreciate you taking the time on this podcast, Rob. I really appreciate this. And then hopefully we have a season this year. So we'll wish you best of luck on that too as well.
Hey, for you guys, anytime, my main men there. I appreciate it. And it's a privilege to be on with you guys. And thanks very much for having me.
I appreciate that. Have a good one.
Take
care.
Take care. Look after yourselves.